Hello and welcome back to another episode of Faith Building Fridays. So I posted a video about how we rescued these cats. So today I'm just going to tell you about little Faith, who was a little kitten that we thought was going to die. So our neighbor, like I said, she came, asked us to collect these cats. So we did, and when we did, we found that most of their eyes were gone. So one of them was completely blind, two of them only had one eye, and we think one might have both of their eyes, but it's still kind of sketchy whether it's gonna make it or not. But they get this infection and the whole eye just kind of disintegrates, and I was like pulling out eyes. But we gave one a bath, and surprisingly we didn't find any fleas on any of them, which was crazy because every time we've ever collected stray cats they have a ton of fleas. So anyways, we put them in the crate outside. It was chilly that day, and the one, we come outside and she is looking like she's on death's doorstep. And so I pick her up, and you know, when something is that close to death, I mean, I have no idea what to do. I have seen a lot of our animals die, and you're just hopeless. Like you can do nothing. There's nothing that you can do, and you're just trying so desperately to do something, but there's nothing that you can do. And so I was just trying to keep her warm. I had no idea what was wrong with her. We had just collected them. I'd given her a bath. I thought maybe she was getting hypothermia or something, or, you know, she was really skinny. Maybe she was just like at the end of her starvation. I have no idea. Or the eye infection. There's so many things. So anyways, of course I'm praying in my head, but I don't want to freak out the girls. But I did say, like, hey, I was preparing them for the inevitable, that this kitten was gonna die, and they were like, you know, they didn't want that to happen. So I'm just praying, and so I just trying to warm her up. And so I finally got this warmer. I heated it up, put it around her, and she was kind of just in this little ball. And Sophia was sitting with her on the sofa, just holding her. And I just kept thinking about God, and, you know, how is God involved in this, like this kitten dying? And we had read a book called Those Who Trust in the Lord Will Not Be Disappointed. It's an amazing book. I'll try and find it and put in the description below, but it really, really helped to build our family's faith, and how just trusting in God, you will not be disappointed. And then there's this other thought of, you cannot have fear and have faith at the same time. They are the opposite. So if you have fear, you're not having faith. If you have faith, you won't have fear. And that is very powerful. And I'm just thinking about that. And I'm thinking about, you know, trusting in the Lord and not being disappointed. And I'm thinking about, you know, in Matthew 7, where he says, ask and you'll receive it. And, you know, you don't receive it because you don't think you'll receive it. You're just asking because, you know, without any faith behind it. And so Sophia's sitting there holding this little kitten. And I ask her, I'm like, Sophia, would you be disappointed if this kitten died? And she's like, yes. And at that point, like, we know the kitten's gonna die. It's just a matter of, like, how long this is gonna take. And so she's like, yeah, I would be disappointed. And so I talked to her and I said, remember, if you trust him, you won't be disappointed. If you trust God, you won't be disappointed. And then I said, are you afraid that she's gonna die? And she said, yes. So I said, Sophia, every time you have fear, just say, I'm not gonna be afraid, I'm gonna have faith. Now, I get afraid about a lot of things, and I was afraid about that kitten dying. But even though those thoughts came into my head, I always went back and I'm like, no. I just said no to that fear. And I said, I'm going to have faith. And every time I had that fear, I said, no, I'm going to have faith. And I'm just going to trust you. And so we're sitting on the sofa, and I said, love, there's nothing that we can do. There's nothing that we can do for this kitten. And, you know, her only chance is God. So we just have to put her in God's hands and trust that, you know, he's going to do what he's going to do. But I thought to myself, you know, if this kitten died, honestly, I'm just going to be honest. Like, yeah, I don't want animals to die. That's why we went and collected them. But would I really be disappointed if this kitten died? Like, I have no real attachment to it. You know, we just collected it. It's this responsibility that we have. You know, it's one less mouth to feed. And I know that sounds a bit heartless, but, you know, it's a kitten. But I asked her, would you be disappointed? And it was up to her to have that trust, and it was up to her to have that faith. So, needless to say, you know, we put the kitten down with Watson, and she was just laying there in her little warmer, and I figured it was about time that warmer was getting cool, so I went to get it, and here she just kind of pops up her head, and she's like looking good, and we were all just shocked, like, oh my word, I can't believe she's doing well. I can't believe that she's fine. And so we're like, we're just like shocked. And so anyways, so we and then I'm thinking to myself, was she really on death's doorstep? Like, did she really, like, was I just crazy? So we heated up the warmer again. We let her walk around and stuff, and we tried to feed her. And then we put her back in the warmer and had her over there. And, you know, later on that day, we put her back with her brothers and sisters, and she was doing fine. And so for Sophia, it really built her faith, because even though we're gonna have those moments of fear for the rest of our lives, but it's up to us whether we are going to accept that or we're going to counteract that and just say, no, I'm not going to have fear. I have faith. So it was really cool. And I could see Sophia's just shocked. Like, I can't believe she's going to be okay. So needless to say, she's been feeding these kittens. She's been giving them their eye medicine, and she's been giving them other medicine, and it's been a lot of work for her, and she's doing it by herself, because I said, if you're going to do this, you're doing this yourself. This is your responsibility, because to her, oh, let's get baby kittens, and then mom and dad do all the work, and it's a lot. So anyways, so she's been doing this, and sometimes I ask her to go out there, and, you know, after the third day, the newness of everything has worn off, and she doesn't always want to go out there, but she does do it. So this morning, I go out there, and the little kitten had crawled out of where all her brothers and sisters are, and she had crawled out, and she was all by herself, and she was dead. And so I was like, oh, how could this happen? Our little miracle kitten. And you know, I picked her up, and I'm thankful I went out there, because I needed the wipes for something, and they were out there, or else, you know, Sophia would have found her. But I'm glad that I found her. So later on, I told Sophia, I'm like, hey, you know, Faith didn't make it. And she was like, oh, okay. And she was fine with that. You know, of course she didn't want her to die, but, you know, it was one less mouth to feed. And I just thought to myself, like, I thought, you know, why would he let her die after, you know, we just had this amazing experience with her. And I remembered my mom. So my mom passed away in July of 2020. And of course, like, you know, losing your mom is nobody wants to do that. But 15 years before that, they found something in, I believe it was her ovaries. I think I was in high school or college at the time, early college, maybe freshman, or maybe I was a senior in high school or something like that. But they found this tumor, and they were like, hey, this could be cancer. And I'm sure it was in her ovaries. But we decided to do an anointing, and our pastor came over and they prayed for her. And when she went to go get, I don't know, a scan or MRI, when she went back to go do that, they could not find it. And I thought, like, wow, okay, so maybe it wasn't really there. I don't know, but I remember my mom saying, like, God gave me an extra 15 years. And I'm sure thankful for those 15 years, because she got to see her grandkids. She got to see all of her grandkids. But, you know, she eventually did die. Like I said, 15 years later, you know, they saw cancer, and she did die, but she was so at peace with going, because when you know that there's a God, and you know that this world isn't the end game, for me, death is not so bad, because this world is not our home. This is not the end game. And this is the battlefield. And we all have to be here. We all have to go through trials. And, you know, God says that, you know, you will have many trials on this earth, but take heart, I've overcome the world. And when bad things happen, I think about the story of Job. Job lost all of his children, all of his wealth. He lost everything, and the only thing he kept was his wife, who became a nag. And he did not lose his trust in God. He did not lose his trust at all. And his friends would come over, and just, you know, they were not encouraging, they were discouraging. Job lost all of his health. He was in so much pain. But he would not lose his faith. And at the end, God comes and says, who is this that darkens my counsel? You know, where were you when I formed the mountains? Where were you? You know, he says, I have it open here. I love it, because it's like, who do you think you are? Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Tell me if you understand. Who marked off its dimensions? Surely you know. Who stretched a measuring line across it? On what were its footings set? Or who laid its cornerstones? And it just goes on. And I think to myself, you know, bad things are going to happen in this world. It's just, you know, a fact of life. But God is going to be there by our side all the time, and we're gonna have good times, we're gonna have bad times. But I really feel like this experience, even though after several days the kitten did die, it did build my child's faith, and she was shocked when it did die. But I felt like God gave her those days to build her faith. But then, you know, at the end it was like, it's okay. She was okay, because she didn't feel like she killed that kitten, you know? She did everything for it. Because that first day, I think if it would have died, we would have felt like, oh my word, what did we do? But I just think she was in bad shape, and she kept going away from the other kittens, so she kept getting cold. So I hope this story encouraged you, and to know that God has your life in His hands. And like I said, if you have lost a loved one, just know that it's not the end of the story, and we're the ones who have to suffer without that person. But for them, it's just the beginning of paradise.